can you just tell us when you worked for the city?
Well, sure. I worked, I was probably the first one to resign, unfortunately. I worked briefly from the beginning of January right after the inauguration to about the first week in March. I would have resigned actually before it was official. I had approached the mayor on several occasions, realizing that the talents and the skills that I brought to the administration were not being used, and I was not going to subject myself any longer to the kind of behavior and abuse that she seemed to want to inflict upon those around her.
Including yourself?
Including myself, absolutely.
And did you feel as though you couldn't do your job effectively?
Yeah, there was no way I could do my job.
Well, can you elaborate just a little bit?
Yeah, well, specifically, the mayor, as you have heard from Dr. Thomas, while she surrounded herself, at least in the beginning, with very competent people who came with a real excitement about trying to help the city. I remember the excitement that first day when we met in the offices. Even though the offices were horrible, the people there were ready to get to work, and I felt I was being a part of something special, something historic. That bubble soon burst when I realized that the mayor was not capable of real leadership, that she did not understand how to organize a staff. She resisted our coming together for morning meetings. In fact, she stopped that. She did not want me or allow me to even go to lunch. She forbade me to go to lunch with the chief of staff at the time, who was Dr. Holmes, Michael Holmes. She created also an atmosphere. She soon created an adversarial atmosphere amongst the people on her staff. She would seem to favor me at one point and to put down Dr. Holmes, and then she'd favor Dr. Holmes and try to put me down. It was playing one against the other, which I found extraordinary. I thought, this is going to hurt her in the long term. She needs a solid team that's working together. Mm-hmm. She also wanted me to have an adversarial relationship with the media. You know, at one point, she asked for every email I had ever sent to the Patriot-News, and she asked me to print it out. And I just thought, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard. But she insisted, I am your boss, I am the mayor, and this is what I've asked you to do. So I dutifully did it. Right? We're not talking about somebody simply yelling at you and then you're getting over it. We are talking about illogical behavior. Okay? We're talking about, in my case, feeling physically threatened when I was alone with her. Okay? That is what we're talking about. And we're talking about never being able to get to the big picture of solving problems or doing something that matters for the city.
Right. Physically threatened?
Yes.
How so?
Well, the last meeting when I actually left was because we were in a meeting together and she was screaming about a question that someone from the Patriot-News had sent, and by that time I was supposed to put everything in writing and leave it on her desk, and so she had gotten it, and she was blaming me for the questions that the Patriot-News asked, and she started standing up and screaming and yelling, and then she got up and she threw her glasses in my direction, and at that point I said, you know, I don't know how far this will go, but I would be really stupid to sit around and see how far it goes, so I got a good lesson.
That's when you left?
That's right. I left the room and I did not come back for several days. The mayor seems to lack that understanding of how to be a privately religious or even a publicly religious person, but to still be inclusive of those who may not understand all of those things. But the other thing is that I think many of us have been very uncomfortable at times. When I first broached to her my desire to end our relationship, she also said she prayed on it. And she was sitting in her kitchen and heard God's voice just as clear as day that I was not to leave, I was to stay there. And I believe you even wrote that in your notes because you were taking notes at the time, that God told her clearly in her kitchen that I was where I needed to be there and I was not going to go anywhere. So, you know, again, I'm a person of faith, so I understand that people have faith and that informs their decision. But there is something else going on here. First of all, there's an abuse of faith. And there's something that even makes me uncomfortable to move forward.
But Joyce, in the short term even, we have very little time to act on this debt crisis. Are you saying maybe like she should step aside because she doesn't?
It would be she would be considered a saint now. The whole public tide would change. And if she were to decide, I need to let someone else do this, that I'm not capable, yes, I would reach down and kiss her feet. Joyce would, if she were to do that.
To step down.
That's right. I promise you I would, because it would be for the good of the people of Harrisburg.